Good afternoon. Look at this scenario. A 50-year-old female was admitted to the hospital with non-healing ulceration of the left ankle and edema over both the limbs. Joint pain was associated with intermittent fever. No history of sensitivity, decreased urine output, or yellowish discoloration of urine. No residual joint deformity. Getting my point? Patient is coming with the joint pains, which is also associated with off and on intermittent fever. Okay. And on examination, we that she has a tenderness upon palpation and on palpation of the particular affected joint, and you can on inspection you can notice that there is a swelling of the joints. And patient gives a typical history. The moment I get up from the bed, it is very painful that to get up from the bed, and I have a severe joint pains. Once she starts walking, the pain gets relieved slowly, and intermittent fever. Now tell me what could be the cause in this patient. So this is the most commonly, when you sit in the outpatient clinic, it's the most commonly presentation of the joint pain with the intermittent fever. You do come across many cases of this sort. One has to keep in their mind what could be the differential diagnosis in this kind of patients, and why are we studying about this particular case. When you examine the joints, you can see swelling here, swelling of these joints, and signs of inflammation as well. So the patient is giving a typical history of early morning stiffness, which is a classical feature of, is it something related to gout? What is the finding in gout? And it is continuous pain. It is not intermittent, but yeah, the pain gets increased upon alcohol consumption. At your first MBBS level, you must know to differentiate the joint pain of excessive uric acid from other causes. So this is a typical case of rheumatoid arthritis. And what is the chapter that is related to biochemical aspects? The patient suffering from that is rheumatoid arthritis, have got a lot of inflammation. It is a chronic inflammatory disease. It is an autoimmune disease. The antibodies are produced in this particular condition. After injury that is related here, because the neutrophils are going to release certain the free radicals which are going to damage your joints, and the GBM, the globe. To study today about free radicals and antioxidant. This is a chapter which we are dealing with. Most of the time the short answers or the short notes may be asked in this chapter. The most commonly asked questions are lipid peroxidation, and how do you classify them, what are the different examples for different antioxidants. So these are the questions which are commonly targeted in this chapter. So today we are going to deal with free radicals and antioxidants. So by definition, everyone knows, we have already studied in our 12th standard. A free radical is a molecular fragment or a molecule that contains one or more unpaired electron. You can see here oxygen molecule with all paired electrons. Here you can see one electron is missing on the outermost shell of the orbit. So this we call this entire molecule, we call it as a free radical. How do we, what is a representation? How do we represent this free radical? It is by R superscript dot. Free radical, it is R superscript dot. Okay. Oxygen species, what are these? Whenever oxidation takes place, there is no there may be a partial oxidation will lead to generation of many free radicals. You can see here the superoxide anion containing an unpaired electron in its outer orbit, and you can see here hydroperoxyl radical. Okay, so here one electron is missing again. You can see hydroxyl radical, one electron is missing, and this is a hydrogen peroxide. It is not a free radical, but definitely it comes under reactive oxygen species, and this molecule and this hydroxyl ion. These are actually not free radicals, but they are reactive oxygen species. Getting my point? Now, whenever the oxygen undergoes sequential reduction or the partial oxidation, what happens? Certain free radicals are generated. You can see here the oxygen molecule upon losing one electron becomes singlet, and hydrogen peroxide generation of free radicals. And the reactive oxygen, the symbol is this, and off life 10 to the power of -6, hydrogen peroxide, hydroxyl, hydroperoxyl radical, alkyl radical, peroxyl radical, singlet oxygen, ozone, nitric oxide, peroxynitrate, and nitrogen dioxide, and nitronium ion. You can see most of them are oxygen related species and nitrogen related species, which are acting as a reactive oxygen species. Now Why should we study important characteristic features of this reactive oxygen species? Number one, they got extreme reactivity. Nobody can stop them. It's very difficult. So it is having an extreme reactivity. Number two, it has got a very short lifespan. And the most important characteristic feature of this RO is that they undergo something called chain reaction, and one free radical will generate another free radical. In turn, one, it goes on increasing. It's called a chain reaction. And whenever the limits cross, or the minimum normal percentage of free radicals is limited to the body, when it crosses that range, it's going to have a severe impact on various tissues, going to damage them. Now, what are the different sources of these free radicals that are produced in a body? It is a reactive oxygen intermediate and free radicals, and transition free radical aspect, that is reactive oxygen intermediate and free radicals. I said you that the complete oxidation is very helpful to the body because it's going to reduce to the water. But yeah, the products of the partial oxidation of the reduction of oxygen, it produces number of reactive oxygen species are going to be highly instant. Then the examples of free nitrogen oxide, you can see which are not free radicals: H2O2, hypochlorous acid, ozone, singlet oxygen, nitrosyl, nitrous acid, nitrogen dioxide, nitrogen oxide, peroxynitrate, alkyl peroxynitrate. So these are not free radicals, but they are reactive oxygen species. Remember this. The transition metals, you know that in a periodic table, the transition metals, mainly the copper and the iron, they play a very important role in the generation of this free radical. They do react with the hydrogen peroxide to form hydroxyl radical. Okay, you can see here, actually it is superscript dot. Okay, hydroxyl radical. Iron and copper are more reactive oxidized counterparts. They are referred to as transition metals, are not there. There's always tendency for the body to oxidize or to reduce the oxygen into complete water molecule, and at the same time, in their absence, the oxygen and hydrogen peroxide, both of them are going to be harmless and they are going to be removed the water molecule. But in their presence, there are sort of biological reactions that are going to happen, which are going to show in this slide. We call it as Haber-Weiss chain reaction. Sometimes in your examinations for the short notes or the 2 mark, 3 mark question, they can ask you what is Fenton's reaction, what is Haber-Weiss reaction. Haber-Weiss chain reaction, it is a combination of Fenton's Haber-Weiss reaction. It is following the rule of 3, that is initiation part, propagation part and the termination part. The initiation of this free radical generation reaction, what is going to happen? Hydrogen peroxide is going to react with the ferrous form of the iron. It's going to produce that is hydroxyl radical and OH molecule, and ferrous is converted into ferric form. This is called initiation step. You can see this hydroxyl radical, it is a superscript, OH superscript. The Haber-Weiss reaction follows 2 different steps, that is propagation phase and third one is termination phase. The initiation phase is with the Fenton's reaction, and the propagation phase of Haber-Weiss reaction and termination phase of Haber-Weiss reaction. Together we call it as Haber-Weiss chain reaction. Haber-Weiss reaction, the hydroxyl radical is going to react with hydrogen peroxide again to form water molecule and the oxygen radical along with release of hydrogen ions. This oxygen radical along with the oxide and hydrogen atom, it's going to get converted to oxygen, OH and H2O. Again it is a hydroxyl radical, free radical. This hydroxyl free radical is going to again combine with the molecule of ferrous form of iron along with the hydrogen molecule. It's going to get oxidized to the iron, that is ferric form, along with the release of water molecule. This is how exactly the Haber-Weiss chain reaction operates. Getting my point? So this is a very, very important aspect of the free radicals and reactive oxygen species, how they get generated in the body. Now, generation of oxygen free radical, how is going to take place in our body? It is by the electron leakage. Where does it happen? Electron leakage, you are all aware of electron transport chain, right? There's some sort of leakage that's always happening in the electron transport chain. Normal oxidation reactions in our body is going to generate certain amount of free radicals. Number 3, exogenous agent. We have already studied in the cancer chapter and even in the genetics what is the impact of ionizing radiation, what is the impact of UV radiation, what is the impact of X-ray. All these things we are already familiar with it. And there's something called respiratory burst. These are the 4 important sources in our body which results in the formation of free radicals. Let us look into the electron leakage. This is the major source. Remember, this is the major source of free radicals in the cells is from the electron transport chain. Otherwise, one cannot imagine the amount of energy that's going to be produced by electron transport chain if at all this leakage was not there. Yeah. So God has created a balance in this electron transport chain. In order to maintain the balance, He has created something called electron leakage. Self-efficient, that's most oxygen is completely reduced from water. The God has given a wonderful property of oxygen getting converted into the water molecule in our body, but at the same time about less than 2% of the oxygen can form free radicals. But yes, it has got a biological impact. It is advantageous as well as disadvantageous if excess amount. That's where we are going to face a problem. The normal that is oxidation reduction reactions which require dehydrogenases, oxidases as a coenzymes NAD and FAD. So these are the oxidation reduction reactions, the auto-oxidation of certain compounds. Certain vitamin C and thiols nothing but vitamin E, they undergo auto-oxidation. Sometimes they got a tendency to undergo auto-oxidation, resulting in reactions greatly amplified through and whenever in such reaction the trans metals come into the picture like iron and copper, they will enhance the production of free radicals. That's a property of the transition metals. The FAD dependent dehydrogenase reaction, the oxygen molecule getting converted to hydrogen peroxide, which is again a reactive oxygen species. Oxidative stress in the cell. Now, already about urine degradation, the end product of urine degradation, collect the urate with the help of an enzyme called xanthine oxidase. ATP is converted to ADP to AMP, adenosine, breaking into inosine, the degradation of your purines, right? This hypoxanthine, the last step of your purine degradation, the hypoxanthine getting converted to uric acid. This particular step requires something called xanthine oxidase, which is also dependent on calcium. You can see that there's a generation of the oxygen free radical as well as reactive oxygen species in the form of hydrogen peroxide. This is what exactly happens in a biological system. They are all examples of our body itself. The exogenous smoking, UV light, and as a result of cellular metabolism, then air pollution, exposure to the inflammation, they're going to cause severe impact on the DNA, going to damage the DNA and affecting the next generation. Exogenous agents and something called respiratory burst. The free radical production required in the biological system. Do we require free radical system in our body? Yes, oxygen is greatly increased following the respiratory burst and killing the organism. Is going to show in the slide. You can look at this particular the glucose undergoes HMP pathway resulting in generation of NADPH. The oxygen is converted into free radical form of the oxygen, and this is going to happen in this way. This is going to react with one more molecule of oxygen and hydrogen atom in mutase. This is an enzyme, superoxide dismutase. Very important enzyme which plays an important role in free radical scavenging system, which we are going to discuss in the later part of the slide. This is going to result in the production of hydrogen peroxide along with the oxygen molecule. This particular pathway is operating in the phagocytes and polymorphonuclear cells. This hydrogen peroxide combines with the chloride molecule in presence of an enzyme called myeloperoxidase. It's going to generate HOCl, that is hypochlorous acid, which is going to kill the bacteria, and this is a mechanism that operates in the bacteria. It is a mechanism that's going to operate in our cells, going to kill the bacteria. So this is the done with the help of 3 enzymes, basically the NADPH oxidase, SOD and MPO. And regarding SOD we are going to discuss in detail in the later part of this chapter. And what are the functions of this free radical? Of course, they have got a protection against the microorganisms by something called respiratory burst by the generation of reactive oxygen species as well as reactive nitrogen species. Is going to damage the DNA, the cellular bacteria, and they are going to damage the bacteria. The enzyme complexes are already we have discussed, that is NADPH oxidase, number 2 SOD, and number 3 myeloperoxidase. And certain free radicals are generated, and this is being used by the oxidases and oxygenases like cytochrome oxidase, and which is a component of your the toxic intermediates like hydrogen peroxide and superoxide are bound to this enzyme. Something called monooxygenases, they are going to activate oxygen in the liver, endoplasmic reticulum, or in the adrenal gland mitochondria. You already know about this in detail, that is cytochrome oxidase will play an important role in the steroid hydroxylation, that is cytochrome P450 we are talking about. So going to play an important role in the steroid biosynthesis, because all the hydroxylases, 11 hydroxylase, 17 hydroxylases, 21 hydroxylases, they do dependent on cytochrome P450 system as well as NADPH. And the most important function of radicals is they play an important role in cell signaling and gene expression. They said that a lot of research has been conducted in this area. The proposed useful in controlled amounts, it may act as a second messenger. Going to do this particular job of cell signaling and gene expression, there's something called the transcription factors, namely AP1 and NFKB. The AP1 stands for activator protein 1, and NFKB, that is nuclear factor kappa light chain activated B cell. This NFKB and AP1, these are the transcription factors which are involved in the transcription of many genes that are responsible for cell proliferation, activation of cyclin proteins, or inhibitory effect on pro-apoptotic target genes. This is how they are going to play an important role. This is a normal mechanism that's going to operate in the reactive oxygen species. It is going to have a stimulatory effect on this transcription factor and NFKB. NFKB has got an impact on cell proliferation because it's going to activate cyclin proteins, or it has got an inhibitory effect on pro-apoptosis target genes. What does this hydrogen peroxide do? It's going to stimulate, it brings about induction of the genes which are involved in survival of the cell, differentiation of the cell, mediation of inflammation, growth, cellular adaptation to alter the redox. Look at the beautiful functions of this particular transcription factors involved in cellular adaptation to alter the redox state. This has got its role in even in insulin signaling pathway as well. If you go into the details of mechanism of action of insulin by the beta cells of the pancreas, playing an important role in the management. It acts through NFKB pathway, MAP kinase pathway. Please do read into the most of the effect of insulin signaling pathway. Now coming to the guanylyl cyclase, which is going to produce cyclic GMP. This cyclic GMP has got a lot of impact on the smooth muscle contraction. It's going to cause the activation of serine and threonine kinases and phosphodiesterase activity in order to manage the smooth muscle cell contraction. So that's about the cell signaling and gene expression. So what are going to be the damage impact? The nucleic acids, lipids, and proteins and carbs. Let's look into the nucleic acid aspects. They are going to damage the purine and pyrimidine by causing the base modifications in them. Break the chain, single stranded of the DNA or both the strands of the DNA could be broken by these free radicals, and sometimes they can attack the saccharide chain cleavage which is present in the carbohydrate, that's the ribose molecule. Sometimes they can modify the bases or modify the sugar moiety of your DNA. Then what is the main disadvantage of it? Can result in mutation. It can result in translation, the abnormal protein may be produced, translation mistakes. It can lead to the inhibition of the protein synthesis, lead to the cellular death as well. So this is about the impact of free radicals. How does they actually do that? Hydroxyl radicals are most potent radical. Remember that the hydroxyl radical is the most potent any part of the DNA. They can modify the reactive oxygen species, can modify DNA, reactive nitrogenous species, and RNA being more susceptible to the damage, and the damage is going to persist. going to cause mitochondrial DNA damage, which is proximity to the electron transport chain, lack of histones, or limited DNA repair mechanisms. These are the impact that is placed on the mitochondrial DNA. On lipids, yeah, the very important question again with respect to examination. On lipid oxidation, what is this? Every one of us know that the Singer and Nicholson's model of the cell membrane, it is made up of, yes, it is made up of phospholipid, the polyunsaturated fatty acids as well. This polyunsaturated fatty acids are going to undergo something called damage. What is the damage that is going to happen to PUFA, which is present at the cellular membranes? This PUFA is going to get modified to the radical form of the PUFA, which is going to damage the membranes. So this lipid peroxidation has got three phases, that is initiation, propagation and termination. Look at the image. This is a lipid molecule. Take an example of PUFA, that is polyunsaturated fatty acids, going to react with the hydroxyl radical, react with the oxygen molecule, and it's going to form RO superscript dot, that is lipid peroxy radical. This lipid peroxy radical, you can see the chain reaction is happening. Another radical. From this radical, one more radical. That is ROO superscript dot reacts with one more molecule of PUFA, giving rise to ROOH plus R with superscript dot. There is a generation of free radical again here, right? This is called chain reaction or the propagation step. What's going to happen in termination? Termination does not take place until two free radicals combine with each other. This is going to happen to products. When this R superscript dot combines with get converted into the invalid or inactive form of this molecule. This R superscript dot combines with peroxyl, that is lipid peroxyl radical, and it's going to get converted to ROOR. You can see the two peroxyl radicals are combining with each other. It is going to form ROOR, that is peroxide bridge dimer, along with the release of the oxygen molecule. This is going to happen in our cellular level, peroxidation to form radicals. Termination. Now, there's something called malonaldehyde. It is a very important compound. This malonaldehyde, sometimes it can be asked for the short answer. It is an end, remember point number 1, it is an end product of lipid peroxidation. It's a neat PG question as well. It is an end product of lipid peroxidation. Number 2, it is a reactive aldehyde. You can see in the name itself, aldehyde is there. And it's going to react with deoxyadenosine and deoxyguanosine. Means it has got a tendency to join with the purine basis of the DNA, and it's going to cause mutation, and it's going to attack the guanidine group of arginine residues, and it's going to condense with MDA2 aminopyrimidines. This is how exactly the MDA acts, and the damage is unsaturated bonds are lost and generation of reactive metabolites. Because of this, it will change the membrane fluidity and permeability. It alters the membrane functions as well. So this is a larger impact that is having on the cellular level. So this is about malonaldehyde. This is how exactly the MDA generation takes place. These are the phospholipids, the basic components of the cellular membrane, undergo rupture or release by phospholipase A2, release of arachidonic acid, and arachidonic acid is converted to lipid endoperoxidase because it is being attacked by the ROS attack through a non-enzymatic reaction, and this lipid endoperoxides, they undergo spontaneous ruptures and they result in generation of what is called as MD. The most dangerous molecule is going to cause DNA adducts, and it's a mutagenic as well. So this is the in small about MDA. Now on proteins, what is going to happen? It is very less known about it, and the protein conformation, especially, it has got a lot. It can also modify. They can modify certain amino acid residues in the proteins as well. What's the damage that's going to be caused by them? They either cause oxidation of sulfhydryl group or modification of certain amino acids, and they can even oxidize certain amino acids present in the protein. So by this, what can happen to the protein? The protein conformation may be lost. It can be altered due to loss of side chain function or enzymatic activity. Further, they can form oxygen radicals in the LDL. They are involved in the atherogenesis process because LDL undergoes oxidation to form oxidized LDL is more dangerous. It is something called as atherosclerosis. and it can result in the formation of antibody against the modified protein as well, and it can have a factor in autoimmune disease. Finally, just remember that the proteins, the lipids, carbohydrate, nucleic acids, all are going to be affected by the free radicals. Degradation of the polysaccharides. So it's on different biomolecules. And the scavenger systems in our body to protect ourselves from the reactive oxygen species. God has provided us certain enzymes which are called as free radical scavenging systems. Now let us discuss about SOD, then glutathione peroxidase, glutathione reductase, catalase and polyphenols. So what is the function of SOD? First of all, superoxide dismutase is of two types. This is manganese dependent. Type 1 mitochondria, M for mitochondria, M for manganese dependent SOD. SOD2 it and iron dependent. It is dependent both copper as well as iron. This superoxide dismutase, recently they have identified that this superoxide dismutase something called lateral amyotrophic sclerosis, which is a dangerous neurological people that is called lateral amyotrophic sclerosis. This superoxide dismutase, the singlet oxygen free radical combines with hydrogen, generating hydrogen peroxide along with the oxygen molecule. And the same that we are going to discuss is about catalase. Catalase is going to have, already every one of us are aware of catalase. Catalase plays an important role in the hydrolysis of hydrogen peroxide, which is located in the peroxisomes of the cell. The hydrogen peroxide, the two molecules of hydrogen peroxide gets converted into water and oxygen molecule in the presence of an enzyme called enzyme glutathione peroxidase. You can look at all of them are meant to cause the hydrolysis or conversion of hydrogen peroxide into water molecule. It requires something called reduced glutathione, that is GSH, in presence of glutathione peroxidase. It causes oxidation of glutathione with the release of water molecule. Simultaneously, what happens is, showing here, hydrogen peroxide is converted to water molecule in presence of an enzyme called peroxidase. It requires, how do we get back our reduced glutathione? This oxidized glutathione gets converted back to the reduced glutathione. Unless this reduced glutathione is there, we cannot detoxify this hydrogen peroxide. That's the reason the constant generation of there should be to convert this oxidized glutathione into reduced form, which is done by the enzyme called glutathione reductase. Here comes the role of again NADPH. If HMP pathway is not operating, this NADPH is going to be not produced. If it is not going to be produced, what's going to happen? There's a lot of free radical damage to our body. This NADPH is converted to NADP and it's going to convert the oxidized glutathione into reduced glutathione. The constant generation of reduced in order to protect from the damage that is caused by two enzymes, peroxidase and reductase, play an important significant role in free radical scavenger systems. And the last thing that we're going to discuss was about polyphenols. Again, this polyphenols, apple. The polyphenols are the highest concentration of polyphenols have been noted in fruits like apple, and this is going to play a vital role in cancerous, and it is going to protect yourself from various harmful effects by the as well. Now, and they are anti-atherogenic as well. So now the last aspect of the chapter is antioxidants. Most of the time the 5 marks question may come from this area. Antioxidants, the free radicals have been damaging the cell, and there should be someone to protect ourselves from the free radicals. Who is going to do that job? It is by the antioxidants. What are these antioxidants? They are defined as any substance that when present in the low concentration compared to that of an oxidizable substrate significantly delays or inhibits the oxidation of that substrate. This sounds very difficult to write, so I have made my own definition of antioxidants. These are the substances which play an important role in controlling and reverse species or free radicals by preventing the initial production and in the lipid peroxidation, initiation, propagation and termination step. There are 3 steps, right? The antioxidants are going to halt, they are going to stop this initial production of free radicals, as well as they are going to prevent the chain propagation, that is the chain reaction phase. So these are called as antioxidants. They are required at the low concentrations as well. Now, these have been divided into 3 main groups. Which are those groups? Number one, antioxidant enzymes. We already studied the free radical scavenging system. It contains SOD, catalase, glutathione peroxidase. Added to that, there is something called ceruloplasmin as well. It is a copper containing enzyme. Number two, the chain breaking antioxidants, which are going to halt the propagation phase of the free radical generation. They are going to be of two types, lipid phase and aqueous phase. The lipid phase molecules are vitamin E, which are called as tocopherols, ubiquinols, carotenoids. Vitamin A, that's bilirubin and flavonoids. And the transition metal binding proteins such as transferrin, ferritin, lactoferrin, because they are going to keep iron with them. They will not allow Fenton's reaction to happen. Fenton's reaction operates when there is free iron available in the body. So the transferrin is a protein which is going to bind this iron molecule. It acts as a carrier protein. This is the mechanism how this scavenger system operates, that is hydrogen peroxide is taken care by the catalase, and the combined action of catalase and glutathione peroxidase as well as glutathione reductase, and oxygen is converted to hydrogen peroxide with the help of superoxide dismutase. And the other way of classifying this antioxidants based on whether it is natural or synthetic antioxidants are propyl gallate. They are used mainly for prevention of lipid peroxidation in foods, especially the oils which we use for cooking. So these oil have got a tendency to undergo because they contain pure along with them, like propyl gallate, then BHA, BH, that is butylated hydroxyanisole, butylated hydroxytoluene. So these three are the synthetic antioxidants which are mainly used in the food industry. The naturally occurring antioxidants, especially beta carotene, which is a provitamin form of the vitamin A, present in the yellow vegetables, especially carrot. Vitamin C, it is richly present in Indian gooseberry, that's called amla, and it is present in all citrus fruits. Vitamin E, it is present in the vegetable oils. Lycopene, it is present in the red tomato. The red color tomato is very rich in lycopene. It's a very strong antioxidant as well. Lutein and zeaxanthin, they are present in the egg yolk. Very polyphenols, they are present in several fruits, but these are present mainly in onions. Sometimes our Indian system, we have got a very good food habits of consuming raw onion along with our lunch, right? So it's a very good habit along with lemon. Whenever you go to restaurant, they serve lemon and lemon along with the onion, right? So this has got a wonderful effect on our body because they have got, all of them have got strong. This is epicatectin gallate. This is mainly, everyone is very conscious about green tea. Wherever you go these days, even villagers, green tea, it's very good for health. What does it contain? The antioxidant that is present in the green tea is epicatectin gallate, ECG. Because of this, it's got a lot of antioxidant property, has got a lot of protection against the cell. Curcuminoids, they are going to be present, and our Indian system, again, we do prepare our lunch without adding turmeric. I think no one's dish is complete in their house, right? This turmeric is prevention of cancer because they have got a strong liver and certain meat, red meat, all that, right? So this zinc has got a lot of antioxidant property as well. What is this? Chlorogenic and melanic acid. Can you tell me where is this present in which antioxidant? Can anyone tell me? Our day starts with this actually. Most of us have got a habit of taking a bed coffee, at least I have it. This bed coffee has got a lot of antioxidant role, that is, it contains chlorogenic and melanic acids, which are the strong antioxidants. Antioxidants, based on mechanism of action, they are classified as preventive and chain breaking. The preventive antioxidant is going to reduce the initiation step itself. The chain reaction comes next, but the initiation of this chain reaction is going to be prevented by preventive antioxidants. Which are those antioxidants which are going to act by this mechanism? They are catalase, ceruloplasmin and EDTA. Ethyl ditetraacetic acid. So EDTA plays an important role as a preventive antioxidant. There is something called a chain breaking antioxidant which is going to stop the chain propagation. The antioxidants which are going to act by this mechanism are SOD, that is superoxide dismutase, vitamin E and selenium, as well as uric acid. is going on in the every one of us, like nutritionist, dietist, he is going to advise his clients regarding vitamin C. These are the most commonly used medications across the across the stand used. Anyone is going to prescribe this. Even the people who do not have any kind of medications on themselves. To any person coming, I have a weakness, why can't you take vitamin B complex? This is a common scenario that we vitamin C, dimethylthiourea, dimethyl sulfoxide, and allopurinol. These are the allopurinol. Can you tell me the mechanism of action? Where is it used? It is first of all suicide inhibitor. It acts by inhibiting a enzyme called xanthine oxidase. It is used in the treatment of hyperuricemia. Rest of the things you know, vitamin E and vitamin C. These dimethylthiourea and dimethyl sulfoxide, they come in combination and they are going to be prescribed in several heart diseases which has got a lot of inflammation, like rheumatoid arthritis as well, chronic and acute inflammatory conditions, right? So this is about the therapeutic agents that's as antioxidants. This is any recent advance. The recent advance is something called Synzyme. Synzyme, it is a modified form of, it's a synthetic form of an enzyme called treating the patients with stroke. Mainly, they have seen that there was a lot of improvement in a stroke patient who is suffering from the cerebrovascular accidents when this particular enzyme was used. It is called a Synzyme because it is resembling to the action of the commercial name M40403 based on metal manganese, and it's going to be more powerful. And for today, the clinical significance of this free radicals. So it's got a lot. Some people at the younger age, they look quite older. You must have, they look too young. What is happening in our body? It's called free radical theory of aging. There's something called free radical generation, lesser the damage and you look more young. There is something called China's concept of aging, calorie intake of the food. The more the calories, more the free, lesser the calorie intake, lesser the free radical. The aging chapter is very well described and go through it. It's very interesting as well. More the free radical generated from the neutrofrozen, it is all that. Atherogenesis and myocardial infarct, bad cholesterol in our body, which is called as LDL. With the free radical, it undergoes oxidation to form oxidized LDL, which is very, very dangerous. The relation of inflammation resulting in chronic inflammation, atherogenic of myocardial infarction. And retinopathy of prematurity. Yeah, what happens? There's something called retrorental fibroplasia that happens in a premature baby who been delivered. They are managed with the high concentration of for this is going to cause retrorental fibroplasia. Atherosclerosis we have already discussed. And these free radicals, by damaging the DNA, they can attack the single strand of the DNA. They can attack the double strand of the DNA. They got more tendency to get addict formation, that is guanine and adenine. They got an attachment to these people, adenine and guanine, and then going to cause base modifications in them and going to damage the DNA, resulting in mutations in turn into the cancers. So this is about the clinical significance of the free radicals. So this covers this important chapter. Please do more about aging, more about antioxidants, more about the 3 steps of lipid peroxidation and what is oxidative stress and how every one of us has got oxidative stress in ourselves, because we are being exposed to a lot of chemical damage, a lot of physical damage that's happening in the environment. Take care of all this. This is the end of today's class, and thank you so much.